Welcome to Flesh and Pod, a Flesh and Blood podcast, breaking down weekly news and notes from the tournament scene, community drama, game strategy, and more. And now, here are your hosts, Derek and Logan.
Hello, and welcome to episode 133 of Flesh and Pod. My name is Logan. I'm your host. With me, as always, is the darkest timeline, as he is currently in a gremlin den, as he has a headache, but is fighting through it for you. Day two, Derek Oswald. I think I do want to talk about what you did in Flesh and Blood this week. I think I really do.
You do? I do. That seems...
because you rarely have anything to talk about. We're both,
first of all,
we are both
have
hot
more
fucking
to talk
messes
about
right now. So
I am in full goblin mode. I had some delays with my flight coming back from Minnesota, both because of the weather and because of an engine fault on the plane I was on.
Not a Boeing.
So I made it safely. But it still caused some delays. So I didn't get home until like 3 a.m. last night, and then I had to wake up and do a bunch of work stuff and whatever. So between that and the very enjoyable weekend, I am kind of running on fumes, and I think that's mostly my headache. I've been trying to drink a bunch of water in case it's dehydration, but I'm also and I'm also drinking a ton of coffee, which is not helping.
That's a diuretic. That is not what you want.
Yeah, I'm aware. So anyway, we're getting there. But first of all, how dare you? Because I always have a lot to talk about in Flesh and Blood. It's just that it's usually not
what
in
have you
person.
Done? Right.
Yeah, it's usually not in person Flesh and Blood stuff because my time as a working father and husband who also makes content and plays more than one game, it's very limited, and I do the best I can. But this weekend was all Flesh and Blood. Had a wonderful time. I obviously went to Minnesota for the U.S. Nationals, though I did not qualify for Nationals this year. I have qualified in the past, but not this year. This year, I think I only played in one RTN total because the timing of those weekends were at the same time as some other work stuff I had going on. I'd have to go back and look at the calendar, but I remember really vividly that there were 4 in my area, and I was super excited. And then I played in one draft, and I choked in the top 8 and didn't get my qualification. So I did not play in Nats. But I still decided to come out because I missed everybody. And so I roomed with you and Mr. Steven Kukis, a.k.a. DM Armada. And we had a wonderful time. We went to Fogo. We opened an Arby's franchise.
We did, because I had the meats.
Yeah, because we had the meats.
Yeah.
And we played some Flesh and Blood. Me specifically, I was very excited to play this weekend because as an assassin gamer, I got a new toy in new, and I will be talking a lot about that, I'm sure, here in the near future. But the short version is I had went into this weekend with the plan to play in the calling on Saturday, and then when I scrub out on new, I was gonna then play Arachne for all my side events for the weekend, so I brought both. And it's not any shade to Azuri. I love her. I think she's actually pretty good right now as well. It's just that I only wanted to bring enough stuff for 2 decks because I knew I was going to have to bring a bunch of cards home with me, and I was trying to save space. So those were the 2 that I decided that I was I wanted to take. I never got to play Arachne.
Nope, you sure didn't.
All weekend long. Day 1 of the calling, I finished 7-1. After day 1, somebody sent me a screenshot, I guess, of the thing, and I was 18th. I was near the bottom of the 7-1s because my one loss sadly was round 2. It was a really good player. That player also ended up making day 2. They were on OG Dash. That was a very close game. I drew horribly, but I don't think that's obviously an excuse. I need to figure out ways to win those games. Good players just find a way to win. But at the end of the game, if it's any indicator, right? I had played 0 codexes, and I'd only played 1 Justinic, and it was literally the turn before I died. I also whiffed on, there was one very key turn where I was going semi-wide, and the list that I ran for the calling on new runs the Art of Desire, both body and mind, so targeting the reds and the blues. And I was actually very impressed with the performance of both of those. I was a little unsure about running the reds. A lot of the lists aren't running the red one, but that ended up being a superstar for me. But I had a turn specifically where I could have generated a lot more pressure if either one of them hit. And it just so happened that when the blue one got its trigger, it flipped a red card, and when the red one got its trigger, it flipped a blue card. So I got, instead of potentially 2 card draws, I got 0. Really like hurt that turn. And since I hadn't had like any other real big power plays, and I was already struggling, like I think that was, thinking about it back, that was probably my nail in the coffin. But it was a really close game. Again, that player was very good. Everyone was really nice all day long. It was a good time. Yeah, 7-1. My deck, I learned a lot about it. I'm already ready to make some changes. I also need to do some more testing into Kano. But in the testing, the little testing I was able to do prior to this event, the decks that I was the most concerned about were the Enigma lists, especially the hyper defensive. All of them are very defensive. I think most Enigma lists right now are Guardians in disguise. But some lists are running like 12 defense reactions, and some are running like 18. And it was the latter that I was even more concerned about. The other decks that I was worried about were KO. I know that might surprise some people, but the big difference between a KO and like a Zen is that your hand disruption is far less valuable against a KO. Against a Zen, if you Sirens Call their blue, for example, and they don't have any other blues to pitch to like have their turn go off, you can neuter their output pretty drastically. Similarly, even if it's not like steal a blue with Siren's Call, but if you hit with Bonds or Persuasive Prognosis or something, and you get to steal something that interrupts their combo line, right? Like if they have a Bonds and a Descendant and you can steal one or whatever, that's a pretty big deal. If you can hit with Bonds of Agony and like remove a ton of their bonds, then that's also a pretty big deal, right? So there's a lot of things you can do that is very important to a Zen that you can't replicate against a KO, because they don't run as many blues to begin with, so your Sirens Calls are less effective. But even if you do steal one, a lot of times they're also going to have like 2 yellows and a red left over anyway, and they're still going to be able to send anywhere between like 7 and 13 damage back at you. So if you're, the thing with New, she reminds me a lot of Bravo in that your damage numbers are never going to be as high as the other aggressive decks, but they're high enough with the disruption. But against the decks where the disruption isn't as impactful, that's where you struggle. So KO was another deck that I was very worried about. And then Kano was one that I was worried about, not because I can't beat it, but at least in testing, if I was trying to run AB, it felt like running AB didn't matter. So then I was like into the race mode, and in the races, the only ones I was winning was like if I get clutch banishes, right? I mean, then that makes sense. So that's one in testing I want to throw more games at, where I run some AB and maybe like 2 Oasis Respite and see if that makes a difference or not. Just because the way the one game I played against Kano this weekend went, like if I had AB and an Oasis Respite, maybe I could have won that. But also, to be fair, I got them down to 11 cards left in deck. And then and to give you an idea of what was left in their deck, with 11 cards left in deck, I then turned around and took over 40 damage because they double wildfired and blazed, and like I just didn't hit any of the things that mattered at all. And I had banished more than half their deck. So
that'll happen.
Maybe it was also unlucky. I don't know. I don't want to overthink that one, but the day 2 experience, so again, started 7-1, was 18th on the thing. The day 2 experience, saying, hey, these are the decks I was worried about, were round 1 of day 2 was a hyper defensive Enigma, who was also a very good player. Again, want to give them, full credit. They navigated the matchup against me very well. In fact, I would say they probably were the most prepared against a new out of everybody, because they were doing some sneaky things like I sent a Bonds of Agony at them and they let it hit exactly for 1, but they also, in doing so, emptied their hand when the hit was happening. And so what happened was they got to shuffle their deck and reset the chi that they had already transcended while also not losing any cards. And it was stuff like that where I was like, okay, it's very clear they know this matchup. And then also the other reason I was like, okay, they very clearly tested this matchup because of the reshuffle. Even though I don't get to select anything to banish, I still get to see their deck. So I do what any good player should do, right? I'm like, all right, let's see, what do I have to worry about in terms of defense reactions? What do I have to worry about in terms of, defensive tools? And so I'm counting and I'm like, okay, it's 3 sinks, 3 fates. All that makes sense. Hold the line. Okay, sure. That all you got? Okay, 3 red unmovables. All right, we're going deep. Oh, they got the mists. Oh, yep.
Unravel aggressions.
Yep. It's just a never ending. I did the count, it was 18, and it was exactly the list that I was not wanting to run into. So I was like, this is already not good. We get halfway through the game, and there was one point where I went to say the words like, hey, can I see what's in your banish zone? And I went, hey, can I? Never mind, because the answer was 0. Because everything they blocked with had been defense reactions. My stealth cards don't banish them because they only banish action cards.
And the one on hit you had, they emptied their hand.
Well, no, I'd hit 2 or 3 with on hits. But the only one time I hit, they'd emptied their hand, and every other time was soaked by ward, which doesn't trigger the on hit either. So that one just went awful. But okay, sure, I should be able to shrug that off, right? Round 2 of day 2, KO. Okay. Not what I wanted to see. I know it's a bad matchup. Just going to have to get lucky with my banishes, go aggressive, right? Like, it's, again, kind of like the KO matchup. KO is you have to get lucky with your banishes and you have to be aggressive. And otherwise they have way more damage output than you do, because Blood Rush is a hell of a card and Cast Bones is a hell of a card, right? Like, that's the full story. So what happens? They turn 1 Blood Rush me for like 20 some odd damage, take like an off turn of sending, like, I don't know, it was like a swing big off of a might or something. And then the next turn I'm hitting them with disruption and they get rid of the things I want to target. So that's the other thing against KO that I think people don't realize when you're piloting new, is that if you do want to target their blues, a lot of the blues they run also, they can get rid of it instant speed, right? So like, the one time I was like, all right, let's see the hand, and they're like, oh, in a response I'll do the agile wind up, and then you look at their hand, and there's like nothing for you to grab of substance or whatever. So that happened, and then a turn later they had a full like Cast Bones that then turned into the following turn they presented like 25 again. Again, it was a good player, not taking anything away from them, but also just a really bad matchup for me. And I get trounced. Okay, fine. I'm out at that point because my day 1 loss was so early in rounds. In my head, I'm like, all right, realistically, I'm out of top 8. Starting 0-2 on day 2, like, that's whatever. But sure. I can at least play for like respectability. I can play for cash or whatever. I'm not going to drop. Let's play this out. How bad can it be? I got my 2 bad games out of the way, right?
Mm-hmm.
Next round is KO again. Okay. And I sit down and I go, oh, really, KO? And he's like, yeah. And then I said, I just ran into a beating. They had a hot start. And he was like, well, maybe it won't happen this time. And, you've got the hand disruption. I was like, yeah, we'll see if that matters. Turn 1 Blood Rush. Turn 2 Cast Bones. That one was also just a beating. So then at that point, I'm like, all right, well, I looked in the Oasis Respite event, didn't start for like another hour or whatever. So I knew I had time for another round. So I went and I pre-registered for that anyway, but then I came back, sat down to play. And then that round was Kano, and Kano, at least went better. That was closer. Like I said, I did end up getting them down to sub 10 health, 11 cards left in deck. I was doing the thing. I also knew that I had to race them because they were doing everything they could to just find their combo cards as fast as possible. They were hyper pitching to all of their stuff to empty their hand and reload. They knew the drill. I knew the drill. And I just never hit the cards I needed to banish. Got to the point where I was going to present lethal, and then they lethaled me, and a story. So my day 2 did not go the way I wanted. Yes, I did run into 4 bad matchups right in a row, but one, like I said, you got to find a way to win those. I know that it's hard, but like good players win those games, and so I need to tighten that up. I also feel like I learned a lot about my deck. There are already some changes I want to make to my list. Like even in the games where I was winning, some stuff felt better than other stuff. Some stuff surprised me, etc. The one bit of joy that I definitely got out of both days, though, was the people that would ask me to read my cards, ask me about my list afterwards. That made me feel good, if only because clearly I was at least doing well. And also I was doing something that they hadn't seen before, because I had a lot of people asking me questions, or like I said, literally like, hey, can I read what your chess piece does?
Because you're playing Redback Shroud.
Yes. So on some unconventional things that I will say about my list that will stick around. And I did share the list in our Flesh and Pod Discord, so you can go check it out, that I ran at Nats. And then when I'm done making changes to it, I will also share some updated versions. But the ones that usually got the most questions were some of the inclusions I kind of felt the most proud about. So Redback Shroud. I opted to run Redback Shroud instead of Tunic because I found that arsenaling Death Touch at times was very clunky. And outside of like the Tunic plus Codex into a Death Touch send off or whatever, I just wasn't really like using my Tunic in super effective ways. Whereas Shroud a lot of times still lets me play Hiss or Venomous Bite for free. I also run 1 Razor Reflex as a surprise getcha. Both it's a surprise both in terms of sometimes if people are smart and they're counting your hisses you've played for a game and they haven't seen the razor, you can catch them when they don't think you can get go again. But also it's just great on a dagger. A lot of times when you're sending daggers and you have resources up or whatever for your attack reactions, people think you're going to Siren's Call your dagger because that's the most common play. And don't get me wrong, still fantastic play, but every now and then when you're late in the game, you can catch them unblocked on that Razor Reflex. So I run it as a one of. So Shroud pays for that, pays for all of my important stuff, but it's also battle worn, so I can block with it early, feel good about it. It's also the only piece that I run that you can get back with silver, but outside of just hand cycling, I don't really have a lot of uses for my silver otherwise, so at least it gives me a purpose. And I did get it back twice during day 1 of the calling, so it's not like I never. It wasn't one of those things that never happens. Like I got it back twice. So the upside was there. And again, the biggest thing is it counts as an attack reaction. So there were several times where it turned on my Bonds of Agonies or my Double Trouble or whatever because it's an extra attack reaction. But I did have a lot of people asking me about that. Few people asked me about Arousing Wave versus Flick Knives. I'm on Arousing Wave. The short answer is that it's battle worn again. Great. Counts as 2 attack reactions on a turn if you need it. Great. If you just need 1 extra attack reaction, you can always arsenal the Fang Strike. But the biggest thing, and I caught 2 people with this as well, while Hiss and Venomous Bite require your attacks to be Assassin or Mystic to play those, the tokens they create, aka Fang Strike or Slither, do not. Right. So the number of times that I sent CNC and somebody blocked 6 and I used Arousing Wave to make it 7 felt really good. Like I said, I got 2 people with that. That's good enough for me to consider running that. The other, I had a few people ask me because they never, they couldn't obviously see my full list, so it was one of those things. I had a few people ask me after the games, but they're like, "Hey, do you run Mask?"
Nope. Sure don't.
Nope. I was solely on Traverse the Universe. No Mask of Recurring Nightmares, and it hurts me because the art is absolutely bonkers gorgeous. But in my testing, I was finding that it was only helping me either win games I was already winning against slower decks like Guardians, or it only made my really bad matchups slightly less bad. So like, I was saying KO is a bad matchup, right? KO is a bad matchup if you're only ripping one card. If you can somehow rip two cards consistently, it gets a little better. But the downside to that is that in order to do it consistently, you have to up your chi count, and then you have a deck full of no blocks too. Yeah. So it's it is a very fine line to ride. So ultimately I cut it, and I never missed it. There wasn't a single game, day one or day two, where I was like, I really wish this was Mask instead of Traverse, because Traverse is just bonkers. It is like,
yeah, and you're only playing like 3 chi in the deck, if I remember right.
I am playing 4 in the main deck. So I play Homage, Passover, Path Well Traveled, and Rising Sun, Setting Moon. And the biggest reason that I run all of those is that they are either ones that I can activate regardless of...
you don't need to target an attack.
Yeah, I don't need to target an attack, with the exception of Path Well Traveled, but the Give Something Go Again is so good that one's worth running in that slot anyway. But yeah, so I'm only running 4, but it also meant, so like I had, one game against a Victor where I fell behind way early. I mean, hot start. They pummeled a Spinal. They followed that up with a CNC that was pummeled. They took a quote unquote off turn where they still sent some big attack. I don't remember what it was, but it was like one of the generic ones. And then they did Cast Homes, the Visit Goldmane Estate. And then the following turn was Golden Sun for like 13 overpower off the Cast Homes. So I was like at 17 while they were at high 30s on like turn 3 or 4. It was dumb. And I ended up winning that because solely of Traverse the Universe. I closed the gap with a really good hero power turn. I had hissed and then arsenaled a Slither, and then I set it up where I could empty my hand, activate my hero power, and then I sent a free Cranial Crush back, slithered the Cranial Crush, and then sent a Thunderquake back for free, right? So I presented like 25 damage or something that turn. Then when they came at me, I blocked with Traverse to get the chi back that I literally just stuck on the bottom of my deck, but all I cared about was the hero power. And then I had drawn into another hiss, so that turn was empty my hand, but again, slithering their attacks. So that was another like... it was 15 because it was another 8 attack blue, and then it was the blue disable that's for like 7, but I was also trying to pressure their arsenal because their off turn, they basically blocked out for the previous turn because I sent a ton, so they were trying to just like arsenal and pass. So I was like, okay, let's try to hit you with your own disable then. But if I don't back to back that, I don't know that I come back fully. So like Traverse was an all-star for me there, and honestly just all day. The other weird inclusion that I had that was actually working out pretty well for me was Infiltrate. A lot of people asked to read that because I don't think they expect it. But my train of thought was I was trying to play new very aggressively. So I wanted access to more Banish, but also access to things that extended my hand so I could continue to be aggressive. Now, the pros and cons are that it is obviously much better in some matchups than others. But in the matchups it's good, it's really good. So Ninja, so like against Zen, stealing some of their red attacks with Go Again feels really good with it.
Yeah, sure.
But even if you catch some of the blues, it can turn on stuff for your turn. And obviously your hero power can already do the blues for you anyway, but it's access to something else. Matchups where it felt bad were like Azalea, though I played 2 Azaleas, and against both of them, I hit a Ravenous Rabble.
Oh, free money.
It's like, yeah, it's like the only thing in the deck I can actually like play against them, but it was just funny that it happened. But yeah, normally, like, because I can't play arrows, obviously it's less important good. There. Yeah. But I was mostly just running it because it was it's still an aggressive block 3 with stealth. So yeah, a lot of people read that one as well. I had a few people ask me, what's they were like, I see people running it, so it must be good, but what's the thought process behind looking for a scrap? And I was like, well, it's just poor man's E-Strike in this deck because
Yep.
you're always going to have targets. So it's a 1-for-5 go again seems good enough. But yeah, those are like my weird inclusions that got the most eyeballs, but it just felt good that, you know, like I said, I was doing well with the deck. In the games that, you know, it was supposed to do well, the deck was doing well. And, you know, good players were like, hey man, like, what's your thought process behind that? Or, you know, whatever. And so like that felt good for like the first time in a long time. I felt, you know, like I was an assassin gamer for real.
And
So
that
that's
was
what I did.
And that was Assassin Corner, everybody. Tune
Yeah.
in next week for the next iteration of that, I guess. I just sucked. I mean, that's the
That's
best
not
way to
true.
put it. Well, okay, couple of things. I went back and I went and sort of replayed some of the turns in my head, and I'm like, okay, so what happened here? I played Ancestral Harmony and I flipped Art of War. Right. Okay, I remember that one. And then I went back, I'm like, I did that 5 times. Okay, how many times did I actually play Ancestral Harmony this weekend? I'm like, I played Ancestral Harmony 9 times. How many? Okay, hold on. How many times did I hit? I stopped and I kind of count back. I'm like, 2. And then against Vishra, I played it twice and hit Chi both times. So, okay, so step 1, get good at Ancestral Harmony. Got it. On it. I'll work on that first. I also just think that like I was playing Zen and I was playing Zen cold, let's put it that way. And the deck should not be played cold. You should have reps. Because the deck is very complex.
Yeah, I was gonna say, for those of you who were paying attention to all of my complaining leading up to the event, a lot of you may have known that I was very close to playing Zen. And what you are saying is the reason that I decided, like, I'd rather, even though New is a new deck, I've played Assassin enough to like understand the class, and so I was like, that is why I don't want to do it, because I was finding like it is not just, it's not Fi. It's not like play dragon cards, go burr. Like the deck is actually very complex, and I think people might underestimate it in that regard.
Yeah, it's the lines. It's. I think it's eventually you play it enough that you see the matrix, and that's where you go with it. And we'll talk about some of the stuff that came out of Nats and the calling and Battle Harden and everything else here shortly. But playing the deck, you know, and playing it pretty cold, I was just like, and because I would do stuff because I'm like, okay, this is the best way for me to maximize damage this turn. And I'd be like, okay, that was a decent turn. And then my opponent would just be like, yeah, okay, like you didn't kill me, so here's stuff back. I'm like, okay, what does my hand look like? My hand's shit. Okay, maybe I shouldn't have done those things to maximize, and I should have like try to save those things. And it's just this weird confluence of things, right? Like it's very difficult to categorize how it all works because every situation is different. And there's also, it feels like 17 different builds of the deck that are all viable. They're all good.
Yeah,
And
I also think you play it differently based on matchup. Like imagine if you will, Kano, but sometimes you also play Kano aggressively. Because I think that there's a fair argument to be made that there are times when the Zen deck plays like physical Kano.
Sure. Yeah, and again, I know that like in some of the instances, like in the calling, I dropped it 2-3. My round 1 as I lost to Azalea. Sure. And it was very close. I actually, my opponent was like, okay, yeah, that was closer than I thought it would be. Then it came down to, I played a Warmongers and I'm like, okay, he's going to blow his half glove because that's just I mean, that card is so good. And I'm gonna blow the half glove, and I need to just not be a red in the ledger. If it's anything but red in the ledger, I'm totally fine. I think I can just win this. And it was red in the ledger. And I'm like, and now I can't. Okay, cool. I just have to block out and take a turn of not a ton of damage, but at least present something to kind of whittle it down, and then like, hope the next turn is because his cross straps are gone. So I'm like, hopefully he can't dominate an arrow, and I can kind of stay in the game. And the game lasts like 2 more turns. But eventually a big enough arrow that I couldn't block just at all. So sure, there's a lot of no block in the deck. So that was very close though. So I didn't feel too bad about that one. I beat a Vincent. I beat a Levia. And then I think I lost the mirror. And then I got obliterated by a Victor. And I was like, okay, well, none of this felt good and a lot of bricking. So I was like, okay, well, I don't know if this is a me thing or if this is a deck thing where I'm just horribly unlucky all the time, which is pretty true. But I obviously reps killed me here. Like that's how it felt. But then like I go and play in a couple other events for Oasis Respite promos and kind of the same things where it's just like I'm still getting the same issues and bricking even more, losing what felt like winnable matchups. And I'm just like, I don't know. And so there's a couple of things I think that I need to I was playing the hybrid list and I don't think I should play the hybrid list. My brain just does not like that. I should just be playing something that does a thing. So like the minimal tiger and maximize bonds, which actually is the one that won nationals really. And or like focus heavily on like tiger generation and do the tiger things. I don't know what is quote unquote better, but I think that for me, after going 3-7 or 4-7 on the deck over the course of the weekend, that I need to like really consider that or just keep playing something else. Like maybe just go and play new, see if I enjoy it. Maybe just go and play something else entirely. I don't know. Like I'm not sure what to do. And because like honestly, one of the players that I beat in the events was a Kasai, and it was a perfect explanation of why Kasai is very difficult to play in this meta, because I'm playing a ninja, and normally Kasai and ninja, Kasai feels pretty good. It wasn't close to close, and I'm just like,
I would like to ask you a question, just to further a point that I made very briefly a second ago. How is Kasai into Kano?
Oh, you don't win that. Like
all right,
that's not real.
So how is she into physical Kano?
About the same.
Yeah.
It turns out, I mean, my opponent talked to me afterwards because he kind of got the idea. You kind of got the impression that I play a lot of Kasai because I presented a stained glass Kasai playmat. And so he was asking me a few questions about what he could have done differently. I'm like, honestly, I think on some of those turns, you just have to say, okay, fine. And block with what you can block with armor wise, or if there's an unnecessary cards, but don't empty your hand. Like, just, you can't do that. You need to at least present something back. And because there was a few turns where he would just block out. And it's like, okay, block out, take 2. Oh, sure, all day long. And I was just like, I don't think you can do that. I think you have to put enough pressure in the matchup and pressure enough, and generate enough velocity in the matchup to make the ninja player think about blocking at the very least. Which he didn't really do, because I think he thought that he had to play it more similar to a guardian into the matchup, and you don't have the attacks that are gigantic to do that. So the pressure has to come from the cards you have. And I just never felt like I was under any pressure. It's just like, all right, I guess I'll slamming the foot on the gas with this deck. I'll block as soon as I like have a turn I'll block with Tiger Feet and Traverse as soon as I have a hand that is an Art of War turn, and just then do another 50 or whatever. So that felt bad on the Kasai end. And I still don't think that it'd be favorable, even if you were being more aggressive with it either. But I think it'd be a better shot. But it's not. It doesn't look super winnable. And then Enigma or Prism. You have to pick one. You can beat one of them, and it isn't super consistent to do so, being Enigma, or you can play to, as long as you play it like very sound with making sure you don't stray from your game plan, you can beat Prism. But you can't do both, it turns out, which sucks. I mean, that's very hard. Considering we're talking about decks that are just played, right? Like, we're talking about top of the meta decks. We're not talking about, oh, I can dodge these. You fucking can't. Like, this is what you're going to see.
Yep.
So,
and that was my concern with new. It's so funny because I kept saying all day one when I was doing well, like, I don't think my deck is good. And everyone's like, how can you say that? You keep winning. And I'm like, I don't think my deck is good. But I think part of the reason I kept saying that is because when you look at the meta, like, I felt pretty good into Zen, felt pretty good into Azalea, some of those, but Enigma and KO are also decks you're going to see. And I did not feel good into those. So,
and some of this is, and honestly, some of this is matchup lottery, right? Like, we were playing the gem lottery a little bit.
Yep.
And yes, you said it earlier, and I think it makes sense that good players find ways to win some of these games. Absolutely. But they also jam hundreds of these games, and they don't walk into major events cold like I did because, well, I'm a fucking donkey, I guess. But or just a human being with no time. Like, we were talking about this before we started recording. I got back from Minneapolis about 11 last night. I probably got to bed about 1. My alarm to go to work went off at 5. I got home from work. I had and then I had to go run my Star Wars locals. Then I came from my Star Wars locals, threw together show notes, hopped on here to record. I'm going to have to edit this tonight and make sure it gets posted tonight. And then I'd be up in the morning tomorrow to work early. And then on Wednesday, I leave for Columbus for Origins at 5 a.m. So if you're wondering what my life is like, it's fucked. And it's only and this is a little bit of a digression, but I was probably approached it was more than 10 times over the course of the weekend in Minneapolis by different people. People I'd met. Were like, "You're Logan, right?" And I'm like, "Yes." From Flesh and Pot. I'm like, "Yes." Love the show. Thank you so much. I listen every week. It's like the highlight of my week. I'm like, fuck. No freedom. That's what you're telling me is I get no freedom because I have to keep doing this shit. Fuck. And because if it's making one person's week better, I'm going to keep doing it. And it wasn't one person that walked up to me and said that. And then somebody pops into our Discord today, and they have a question in our listener questions.
Yeah.
And they wrote us this long, like, really flattering message. And I read that and I'm like, that's like another year of shows.
Yeah. Shout out to Mr. Chips for enslaving Logan for another year.
It's not, but
I do appreciate, because I had quite a few people approach me, hey, Charmer, just want to tell you, love the show, love what you're doing, you make my drive to work great. Or, one person said, like, I love to listen to you guys at work, but not all episodes can be without headphones, which I kind of chuckled at. But every time I was like, you should really tell Logan because I know he'll appreciate it. And almost like clockwork, they all responded with, "Oh, I went to him first."
I'm easier to find. My favorite one is still, we're standing behind some people like at the prize wall, and Charmer says something. A stupid fucking pun. And I just look at him and go, oh, fuck off. And these two dudes just spin around and go, oh, it's Flesh and Pod. And I'm like, God damn it. Yes. Hi.
Yeah. Also, I need to give special recognition, a special thank you to Mr. DM Armada for making my weekend glorious, because he had just as many dad jokes as I did, and also did nothing but dig Logan all weekend long. It was
all
like
weekend.
I feel so bad for Logan because it was like we cloned me in terms of giving him shit and just proceeded to do so. And
it was you always made sure I was captive too.
Yes.
Like any time that you would start in, it would be an elevator or it'd be like a situation I couldn't leave. It would just be, do we got him? Okay.
Or if
let's
you could
start.
leave, like the EV wasn't there. So it'd be like at breakfast, right? So like you've got your food in front of you, but you haven't eaten it yet. So then we'd start.
Yeah. It was hilarious misery is what I'll call it. It was very funny, but I was miserable.
Several points given all weekend long.
Oh, a lot of points were given out all weekend long. It was quite fun. I had a great time. I honestly, even though my performance was dog shit, which sure, I had an absolute blast. Seeing everybody, spending time with people. It was getting the West Virginians fucking hammered again, because every time it feels like they wind up coming out with me one night and then they do not look great the next morning. And this one was, we went to Brit's Pub on Friday for pub trivia. We came in second, which is the first loser. Makes me pretty fucking upset. But so it was myself and Summer, and then Anna from West Virginia, Rune Babe, Dr. Rune Babe, and then Ben from West Virginia, who is just Ben. And as we are there, people just kind of showed up after and hung out on the rooftop with us, had a few drinks there. Then a bit of the crowd, because we had Clark up there, we had Dom was up there, Steven showed up. His DM Armada has a given name, by the way. It is Steven. A few other people, like some other West Virginia folks, showed up. Sergeant Snipes from the Discord showed up, and we spent some time there. And then basically everybody but the West Virginians bailed. I'm like, let's go to the local, and which is another pub that's an Irish bar that's just down the street. And Snipes, it's a left turn out of the Brit to get to the local, not a right. You kept wanting to go the wrong direction. And then you asked me a listener question about it. But so we went there, and I have a couple beers or whatever. And I'm like, okay, well, Charmer's in the room. I want to go, see Charmer and talk to him for a little bit before it's time to go to sleep. And so I'm gonna head out, and I'm like, so I tell the bartender, hey, go ahead and cash me out. And he's like, we ain't done drinking yet. I'm like, huh, that's interesting. But I'm pretty sure I just told you I'm not paying for drinks. He's like, okay, fine, I'm buying. And so he starts pouring shots. And it's like, well, I'm not saying no. And so shots down the line. He did that. I believe I just had I might have had two, but either way. And I'm like, okay, now I'm taking off. I've paid my bill, and I walk out. Well, the West Virginians stayed, and apparently that bartender kept pouring them free drinks for the rest of the night. And so when I walked into the event hall on Saturday morning, I look and I see Anna, Dr. Roombabe, and she just looks like she's been hit by 6 buses, and that the last one dragged her underneath to the convention center. And I'm like, ooh, that's not good. And she kind of looks at me and then just looks down. Like, I make mistakes. And so I asked her, and then she described what happened that night. I'm like, oh, yeah, that's, I'm glad I left. Otherwise I would have been in very similar shape. But instead I went back to the hotel room and just got daggered by Armada and Charmer for the rest of the night, because that's what they do, apparently.
That is what we do.
So we've gone 45 minutes now and have not talked about the results of nationals yet. And so I guess we're not making this a quick one.
No, it'll be fast. There was nothing that really happened at Nationals. No interesting matchups, no big reveals. We can blaze right through this.
I'm sure we can. Well, so U.S. Nationals was won by Evan Herndon on Zen, so avenging his finals loss from last year, which is, pretty phenomenal. Sorry, I have to cough. I also talked at a very high volume for a lot of the weekends. My throat is a damn disaster. That could have chose better ways to say that, but you know what? That's fine. So Evan Herndon on Zen, an interesting build. This is, again, we have a lot of ways to build this, but Evan was playing had Kakara, so had the stick, but was also playing Zephyr Needles. And the more I thought about that, even talking about it on the drive home, it started making a lot of sense. I'm like, okay, because like if you on your like turn that you want to eat some cards so that you can get some of your on hits and do some stuff, if you needle then and present them an incentive to try to break it, they're losing a lot of the ability to turn off your turn.
Yeah.
So needle, if it eats 2 cards that are blocked for 3, you kind of start the pod race at that point. And if they just take it, well, they took 4. Like, that's also pretty good.
That's also pretty good.
So and also, or as a curve ender, right? Like, because a lot of the times you have go again that you can't really do anything with in Zen at the end of a turn. But if you had just needle to attack with and you had 1 left over, you just get a free needle. And that's also pretty good. So I was like, okay, that makes more sense than I'd kind of given it for. A lot of them were playing Mask of the Pouncy Links, which also made some sense into certain matchups where you're more inclined to go get the thing you need as a curve ender to basically to end the turn on a bigger note. So that made some sense. It's hard to know when the best times for that would be in my mind, but the other thing that Needle does that allows you to play Arcane Lantern and have a weapon that's pretty decent into Kano. So there's that too. I noticed that a lot of them are on Blanche, which is for Enigma, obviously, I think, or even like probably decent into New too, to be honest. And then specifically, Evan was on Harmony of the Hunt, which is a 1 for 3 go again that makes a Crouching Tiger, Enlightened Strikes, which I love, and no mauling keys at all, like none in the list. So it's like, okay. And then red bonds, blue bonds, red descendants, blue descendants. So, keeping that line intact and also playing Shifting Winds, the Mystic Beast, so they can set up the descendant turns off Crouching Tigers and stuff like that as well. So
you can do some silly stuff with the
some silly stuff with Shifting Winds. So a really interesting deck list, incredibly well played. I'd like to add. And yeah, so congratulations. The top 8, you had Aaron Grace on Enigma, not Tannen. Austin Summers on Prism. You had Will Bradshaw on Azalea. Nathan Lapham on Enigma. Jacob Shaker on Zen. Michael Dalton on Zen. And the runner-up, Hometown Hero. And it would have been really kind of cool if he would have won too because of the hometown angle. Andrew Rothamel on KO. So you had a lot of Zen. And you also had 2 Enigmas in here too. So we saw the Mistveil heroes really showing up throughout the weekend. Was there anything that like surprised you though about any of this? I mean, I have one thing that surprised me, which was, and it shouldn't, but it was Mara Ferris going 7-1 in nationals in CC with Dash.io. But she was just playing a Rebel trench run deck and throwing boom grenades at people and watching them explode. So I'm like, oh, okay. That's not a bad. It's a good job if you can get it.
Yeah, she was playing Cheerios Dash
Yeah, her deck type is just 0 for 4s, and that's really it.
And that's fine. It's very effective.
Yeah.
I dig it. I played against a Dash.io that I assume was essentially on the same game plan round 1 of the calling, and she was a good player, and she had one turn where she had 3 boom grenades active, and so there's nothing scarier than someone saying like attacking for 5 but threatening 17, and you're like, oh,
Right.
yeah.
I probably should block this.
Probably should block this. Wow. Yeah. I don't know that I would say anything really surprised me. I know they didn't make top 8 or whatever, but I know that Majin and Peter were both doing well for quite a bit, and that doesn't surprise me because Kano, I think, was also fine into the field. You know, we had talked about it ahead of time. We expected Zen, we expected Enigma, we expected. I thought KO wasn't going to disappear, just wasn't going to have the same numbers. We expected Azalea. If anything, the only thing I would say, and I know that in the calling there was some showing, because I was seeing them at the top tables. There was actually quite a few that were at the top tables in day 2. But the only thing I was going to say is for nationals, I expected Prism to do better.
Yes.
But Prism, I know, was doing well in the calling and the battle hardened as well. So, yeah, I wouldn't say that there was necessarily any surprises. I am curious to see how the meta evolves from here, though. I don't know if it means more Azaleas getting played because of Red in the Ledger. I know that a lot of people were scared off of Guardian, and rightfully so, because New eats Guardians. But there is a world where if a large part of the meta ends up on like Zen and Enigma, maybe Bravo becomes viable again. Because I got to be honest, he as somebody who's played a lot of Bravo, he would do very well into Zen, but I feel like he would do better into Enigma than he would Prism. Prism is a problem, but Enigma, I think, with your ability to still dominate things to break the wards, right? Because you don't have to attack the Spectra stuff. I feel like Bravo would actually have a better chance into Enigma than previous Illusionists.
Sure.
So I don't know. That might be something I test for the next round of CC events when we get there. Obviously, skirmish season is coming up, and I'm really excited about the Blitz side of things because I can't wait to play Solitary Confinement. Arachne Solitary Confinement got so many fun new tools that I am jazzed.
Yeah, no, there's a lot. So, also watching Enigma New Moon and Blaze get played, that's some shit. Like, they do some things.
They do some things.
Watched a matchup where the Blaze was going for lethal, and the Enigma was like, okay, make 7 spectral shields, eat it all. We done here? Yeah? Okay. Attack you with haze bending. It's like, the fuck? Because it was Iris of Reality and Dom, who only knows how to pay 3 resources and swing for 4. It's the only thing he knows how to do. So Decimator Axe or Iris of Reality or whatever it's called.
Yeah.
The calling was a little bit different. We won. William Pistol on Azalea won the calling, and you have your top 8 was 1 Zen, a Dash and Venture Extraordinaire, 3 Kanos. So here we go. A Prism, the Azalea, and an Enigma. So that, okay, so the through line here is Zen, right? Like there's still a Zen, but now Kano is just bubbling up and going, all right, let's start blasting because reasons. And I thought that was very interesting. It was the Azalea list was not the full red line list, but a lot of, was the amplifying arrow, Codex of Bloodrock, Codex of Frailty type list. So, okay, a little bit different. Brody was still playing Redline. I know that when we talked about it, but here we see a little bit of a broader game because we're away from the testing teams and stuff like that, for the most part, we're going to see a little bit more spice, I guess, a little less homogenization with deck choices. And so I think that this is representative of that. And then 3 Kanos is just 3 Kanos, like just blasted. Nothing really surprised me in that either. That's kind of what I would expect to be a thing. Was there anything like anything in there that just makes you go, "What the hell?" Like, not for me.
Yeah,
but...
the Kanos. It makes me go, "What the hell?" Because I just don't want to run into them. Stop making me play AB.
But people forgot about Dre, and whenever that happens,
we called it, and I even like fell prey. But I'm also, like I said, I have to do more testing. I'm not convinced that even with AB, that's a more winnable matchup for me. But I will run it back. So,
and then we go to the Battle Hardened, and this is where the testing teams are no longer playing in nationals, and it shows because our top 8 was won by Bryce Morgan on Kano. So Kano won. Kano got some points. And then the top 8 was the Kano. 1 Prism. So obviously the Kano did not play the Prism. 1 Enigma. Probably didn't play the Enigma either. And 5 Zen.
5 times.
5 times. 5 times. Yeah. Just making wrestling references yet again.
Yeah. Sorry.
So 5 of them. And it was very obvious if you start looking at the names of the people who were playing these lists, where it came from. Because you start looking at the Battle Hardened list, and it's like, hey, Tyler Broton on Zen. You have Pat Eschke on Zen. It's like, okay, this makes a lot of sense all of a sudden. Michael Berg, Bergie, playing Zen. He only plays Ninja anyway, so that makes sense. The Enigma was Michael Fang. Okay.
Yeah, he plays Oldhim. That tracks.
Yeah. Jacob Baugh on Zen. Charles Dunn on Zen. Like, you can't make this shit up. So you saw the testing team preparation show up because they're no longer playing day 2 of Nats, and so they're now in the Battle Hardened, and so we have 5 Zens. Sure. And then Kano basically needed to be on the right side of the bracket to not pick up one of the illusionists, and then I guess blast him. That's about it. So pretty wild, honestly. To get an idea, like, you'd expect Charles Dunn to have Charles Zen, that's his name now, to be not playing the aggressive deck, but here we are with him playing the aggressive deck. But he was also playing Yellow Bonds and Descendants, so he was really going down the Bonds path, which isn't the super Tiger path. Although he was playing Mauling Keys, but he was on the shifts and snags, warmongers, 2 awakenings, playing blue fluster fists. Had AB 1 and Spell Void 1. Oops. Best way to put that. You need to race them, and if they have it, they have it. So that's basically how that one works. But congratulations to Bryce. Thank you for winning. Thank you for your service, Bryce. I really appreciate it. Getting Kano points is very important to freeing us from our long national nightmare. So kudos to you. I really am mad that there was no Prism points given out, but we can cross that bridge when we come to it, I guess. Overall, just kind of reflecting on Nats as a whole, the energy in the room was exactly perfect. The entire time it felt great. Everybody that I interacted with and all the players and everybody I played against and everything else were wonderful. I had a great time. I really enjoyed, and then like again, it's that whole spending time within in the community. Always always feels good. Um, and so thank you to everybody that came up and said hello, uh, that spent some time with us, that hung out, that came to Fogo and watched us get the meats.
The meats.
Whoever then the crew that came out for the walleye on Sunday. Um, it was a truly wonderful weekend. So I really enjoyed myself, and again, thank you very much to everybody that made it that way. So if you're listening to this, it's probably you. Thank you. Anything to add, Derek?
No, not to that anyway. I mean, I could talk forever, but I do know that we still have more to cover.
We sure do.
They were like, oh, it'd be great. What if we just like also made some major announcements at the end of US Nationals, and like more so than usual, not like, oh, here's the next set, but here's also a ton of information, while also not providing enough information. Like whoever came up with this slate of reveals, I think really nailed it, because it was enough to tell you the direction they're going, but still leaving you with a lot of unanswered questions. And then of course there's the follow-up article.
Yep.
And I want to mention it because I didn't see it on your show notes, so I'm just going to steal it and say here. There was a follow-up article where they essentially said that all of not all of, but a lot of the higher...
The legendaries and...
Yeah, rarity cards are not going to be revealed ahead of the world premiere event, so that people can discover them for the first time in person.
Yep. So people that, I mean, it's kind of an ick to a degree. But if you know, you know. Cedric Phillips was still involved in Magic too, but probably one of the best casters for card games that you'll ever find. Somebody I quite literally a lot of the ways that I found that you can be very genuine in content creation, even when you're, and people accept you, is because of the way that Cedric does things. He is incredibly genuine and will always tell you what he thinks. He doesn't really have, he doesn't suffer fools or anything like that, obviously, but I always kind of patterned the way that I thought that I would ever be a content creator after how he did things. But he's now working with LSS on a lot of the production side of things. And he was working production for Nationals. And that was kind of, from what I read, this was his input to do that, to say, because Cedric comes from a time where in Magic, during pre-releases is when you found out what the cards were, was opening them. And that sort of electricity that happens when you open something and go, oh, what the hell is this, is hard. You don't get it if you reveal everything ahead of time. And so I like this play. I think that this is going to make Tampa even more interesting for the world premiere. I'm going to just basically shot call that the world premiere is going to sell out. So if you want to go, you probably should be making those plans now, even though it's in September. So you get 3 months, but you probably want to be making the plan to do it closer to now than 2 months from now.
Yeah, closer to now than not now.
Not now, right? And
also, you know what? You can keep talking, but I just realized, because it's going to be in Tampa Bay, I wonder if the Buccaneers have a home game, because that also might make your travel accommodations more difficult. So I will look that
also
up.
True.
Because September 8th, the Buccaneers have their first home game of the season.
Oh, good. I mean, theoretically, you could probably stay in like Sarasota, or Orlando, and drive in. It's not that bad, but
Yeah. I just in terms of like also flights and things like
oh,
that.
sure.
So
Yeah.
all the more reason why you might want to consider that. And it's a home game against the Commanders, which it might not seem like a big deal, but the Washington fan base actually travels pretty
really
well.
Yeah.
So another thing to consider.
It's all the people that from the 80s that remember when they were good. So
we won a Super Bowl in the early 90s, man.
Yeah, you did. Great. Okay. But yeah, so I think that's obviously a really cool wrinkle. My plan is to be in Tampa. My plan was all ready to do that. Like, it was all ready to be in Tampa. So my plans haven't changed, but now I just have to kind of maybe be a little more aggressive in making sure I have everything booked way ahead of time. And I'm usually pretty good at that anyway, but yeah, the new set is called Rosetta. It is set in Aria, obviously, in Rosetta, where we have the earth and lightning talents on display. No ice, thank you. I just don't like dealing with ice, and I know that they'd said before that it's going to be a bit before they go back to doing ice. Because I know that there were some considerations about reworking it, really, so it's less unfriendly to players, specifically new players. As soon as you start locking people out with frostbites on turn 1s and 2 and dropping Channel Lake Frigids, people stop enjoying playing the game because they can't play the game. What do you know? So we have Earth and Lightning talents. We have an Earth Rune Blade and a Lightning Rune Blade, and an Earth Wizard and a Lightning Wizard. So this is also the aforementioned All Arcane set. So this is going to be a lot of fun in the fact that it's going to be very, very goofy. The set is 5 legendaries, with the Japanese exclusives being Shock Charmers and Skullcap. So those will only be in Japanese booster boxes and packs. 49 Majestics, 24 Marvels. That's a lot of fucking Marvels. Because you think about it, you have 4 heroes, so that's 8 Marvels. You still have 16 others. I'm interested.
It's probably specializations.
Yeah, that's
or things related to the talents. Because I've been thinking about this as well, and I remember obviously Aria, you had the pulses that were cold foil.
Yep.
And that was back when like cold foil was the upscale, but now Marvel is the upscale for those types of things. So like if Tales of Aria was printed today, I have no...
They'd be Marvels.
Like they'd be Marvels, you know what I mean? Or have Marvel equivalents. They also could just do cheeky things to existing cards because, again, if you remember from Tales of Aria, it very famously has the special Channel Lake Frigid variant art.
Yep.
And so they could just take like iconic cards for each of them and do a cool treatment as well.
Yep. And just put the Marvel symbol on them. That's really all it takes. But 24 is a lot. I'm really interested by that. So first off, we have an Earth Rune Blade, which, okay, that's kind of cool. We have Florian, who looks like Goth Rune Blade. Also looks like Florian in his young art, which is incredible, by the way, is playing with the Duskblade, maybe. But either way, the young hero. So one of the things we did learn from the casts, from the reveal, is that Florian's young hero and adult hero's abilities will be different. So the young hero is, if there are 4 or more Earth cards in your banish zone, Florian gets, if you would create 1 or more aura tokens, instead create that many plus 1 of each of those tokens. So keep that in mind. And I think that we're going to see that the adult hero just has that number, that 4 increased. It'll probably be 6 or 8 is my guess. But otherwise, same thing. So we have that, which, okay, I get you. I put this one, I should have put this one in, I should have put that one in Wizards. I'll do that then. But the next thing that is Felling of the Crown, which is this art is the nuts. Because you've seen the Queen of Rosetta effectively in art before. She's on with the embodiment token. But here, this looks like a passing of season type of art with like worshippers at the throne, and the throne being, you know, in fall effectively. And it's just, it's gorgeous. But this is a 3 for 4 block 3 red, you know, nothing to see here, right? And then if there are 4 or more earth cards in your banish zone, this gets +4 for now. So now we're a 3 for 8, which
will go great with our Earth Brute when we get it.
Fuck off. Because yeah, this is just an Earth action. So yes, Earth Brute would get to play it. Thank God Oldham is gone. Decompose. When this attacks, you may banish 2 Earth cards and an action card from your graveyard. If you do, each hero puts a card from their hand on the bottom of their deck. So you get Disruption and a 3 for 8.
And the big thing here, well, there's 2. One, you really only need 1 card in your banish zone prior to this, because there's nothing that says that your quote unquote action card can't also be an Earth action card, right? So this could hit 3 with the Decompose. But also, the Decompose effect isn't an on hit, so that in many ways functions as an Intimidate, but you don't get it back, right? Like you're forcing them to go down in hand size before they even get to block your 3 for 8, which is a pretty big deal as well.
Yeah, and you could quite easily just be like, okay, you know, block with 2 cards from hand on your opponent's turn, and then 3 for 8. Eat, you know, you don't have a card in your hand. Eat the card from their hand and turn the corner real hard, real fast.
Yeah.
So
also,
this is.
I know that this card is just Earth, but I just also wanted to give a shout out to the design team for finding fun and unique ways to continue class themes and also have great talent themes that mesh. So specifically, Runeblades have historically, one way or the other, cared about the Banish Zone. So now that we have an Earth Runeblade in Florian, now granted, I know Briar was as well, and she might be like the weird exception, but like I like that they went back and they said, okay, we're going to have a Runeblade and it's going to care about the Banish Zone. Might not be playing things from the Banish Zone, but it still cares about it in its design. And then also introduce this Decompose bit, which is very Earth in its feeling. And I also like that it plays into some of the existing cards from the first Tales set. So I saw Decompose and I saw Florian's text and those things, and I also started thinking about cards like So Tomorrow, where it banishes itself when you play it, right? More cards like that I think are going to be really fun interactions with just even the little bits we've already seen.
And remember, Autumn's Touch is no longer banned.
No, but Crown of Seeds is.
Thank God. I think we figured out why. It's called Earth Wizard. That's why. But yeah, A+ on this card. I really enjoy just like everything about it. Like honestly, looking at it is very pleasant. And then also the card itself is awesome. Then we have Germinate. Germinate is currently my favorite Shiana card ever printed. It is a Florian specialization. It's a blue block 3. I mean, we're checking boxes, baby. And it's XX is its cost. It's create a rune chant or embodiment of Earth token. Repeat this process X more times. So if you happen to pitch 6 into this, you would make 4 tokens, right? So you'd get create 1 and then repeat it X times, and then gain X plus 1 health. So great. Now remember, because you're repeating this process, Florian's ability gives you an extra each time you'd create one.
If he's active, obviously, right? If they're
right.
4 or more Earth cards, yeah.
So if you do pitch 6 into this, you get to make 8 tokens of in whatever mix of sets of 2 that you want. You want 4 rune chance and 4 embodiment of Earth? You got it. You want 8 rune chance? Sure, sounds great. You want 8 embodiments of Earth so you can block 11 with 1 card? Uh-huh. Sure. Can do. I think I love this card.
Yeah, I really feel like in that scenario you're describing, because you're also gaining the health, unless things are really dire, or unless you're playing against a Guardian or a Brute that you're...
Or Azalea.
A Brute that just did, like, you know, cast bones or whatever. I do feel like 6 and 2 will likely be
a lot of them.
The go. Just because that's still a lot of value when, you know, your 2 blocks turn into 4 blocks, your 3 blocks turn into 5 blocks.
A 1 card block on an Azalea dominated arrow.
Yeah.
Like, that's pretty good.
Pretty good.
Yeah. Yeah. And also this art, again, just absolutely stunning.
But I adore this art, and I understand the choice here, but I felt really bad for Carlos when I saw this, because the art is gorgeous, but there's so much detail and stuff in the hair/leaves part, and then the hands look a little weird, and I'm just afraid that you're gonna have a lot of people say, like, hey, is this AI, because the hands are a little weird.
No, it's
not. You know what I mean? I know it's not, and that's what I'm saying. I feel bad for Carlos because I know it's not, but okay. That was my first reaction, because AA has got me trained to look at hands and ears now immediately, and I hate it.
Okay, well, that makes sense. Next up is we have Lightning Runeblade, and it's Storm, aka Aurora. This is a weird one, because on rate you don't like get what she's doing. But and all these are 20 health, by the way. But her ability is once per turn instant, 2 pitch, create an embodiment of lightning token, activate this if you've only if you've played a lightning card this turn. Okay. So embodiment of lightnings, for those who are the, I guess, uninitiated, are just upgraded, sort of pseudo upgraded Quicken tokens. There are Quicken tokens that don't blow up on weapon attacks, so only attack action cards. Otherwise, same thing. So gives an attack action card go again. Your next attack action card go again. Again, not sure I love this one, but we'll have to see how the cards play out with it. What I do love is Channel Lightning Valley, because this is an entire fuck this card. Channel Lightning Valley is a yellow, because all the lightning cards, like the lightning type cards, that are usually yellows that are the Majestics. Cost 0. It's an instant lightning instant aura. The first time you deal damage to an opposing hero each turn, draw a card. Huh. Channel Lightning. At the beginning of your end phase, put a flow counter on this, then destroy it unless you put a lightning card from your pitch zone on the bottom of your deck for each flow counter on it. So same thing as all the other channels. So this can stick around too. And it's deal damage. So Rune Chance work. Shock Charmer damage works. Basically anything works. It's each turn. So Sigil of Suffering, if they can't AB it and they take the Arcane.
Or if you're playing a Lightning Wizard and you're doing stuff at instant speed.
Yep, all of those things. And Huh. This
Yeah.
is a lot. It's kind of where I'm going with this.
This is a lot. Before we go too far, though, I want to say three things about Aurora, actually, but they're all
Okay.
really short. First is I like the art of the hero, specifically because it's kind of hard to see because the text box is covering it, but I like that her boots have this like lightning feel
They're
to it.
lightning boots. Yeah.
The second thing is I can't wait to see whatever that weapon is, because that lightning sword just looks badass. And even if it's just her token weapon or whatever, like it's just a badass sword.
It looks really cool.
It looks really cool. But the other thing that I wanted to point out, you know, you were talking about like, I don't know where we're going with this or whatever. Her hero ability is an instant. And it is obviously once per turn instant. So there might be some weird incentives because we know obviously there are wizards in this set. There might be some weird incentives where you are doing things to create the tokens on your opponent's turn. It's interesting to me that this was an instant as opposed to an action. It's also the sort of thing as an instant where you could end your turn, and then if you have like leftover pitch, you could just give yourself
Make
an
one.
embodiment of lightning for the future turn to set things up. So I don't hate it. I am kind of curious to see how we get the opportunity to utilize it. But yeah, I just really wanted to say I'm excited for that sword. That sword looks really cool.
Yes. The next portion of the show is we have an Earth wizard named Verdance. We don't know what it does. They just showed us the marvels and not the text. So
I'm trying to get Sophie to cosplay as the young version, though. Like literally, she was looking up like dresses and costumes and things that she could retrofit on Amazon the other day. So I actually think I might have got her to consider it.
All right. The card to talk about with this one is first channel the Millennium Tree. It's an Earth action, so you know.
Yeah.
Costs 3. Sure. Go again. Familiar. When this enters the arena and at the beginning of your action phase, amp 3. For those of you that don't remember what amp does, amp is the next time you would deal arcane damage this turn, instead deal that much plus 3. This happens before prevention effects. Okay. So couple of things. One, I wanted to talk about this with wizards because obviously the wizards are going to also be dealing arcane at instant speed. It's an Earth wizard, so they're going to be doing that kind of shit. But also Florian can play this.
Yeah.
So rune chance.
Or again, just trying to think about callbacks to Tales of Aria, right? There's a lot of just attacks that also do it, or effects like Bramble Spark.
Yeah, when your rune chants are dealing 4, that's a lot.
Yeah.
And if Florian's online, Grasp makes 2. So there's that too. There's a lot to consider. This could get scary very fast. I'm glad that it at least costs 3.
It does cost 3, but again, if you're not that we know a lot about this set yet, but if you're considering traditional Runeblade playstyles, this does qualify as your non-attack action because it's an action with go again. Yeah. So that's another thing to consider about this.
It's pitch. It's germinate the turn before to make 8 rune chants, and then we pitch Autumn's Touch to play this, and then we play Felling of the Crown for 8 with 8 instances of 4 behind it. No. This is Earthbrute. I don't think I like this. And if you if you can manage to keep a Channel Mount Heroic and play at the same time, I mean, shit, why not? Let's go to Magical Christmas Land. Fuck that. All in all, like, again, just very interesting design space they're working with here. I do love that, we saw with Kindle being AMP 1 that AMP would have different values. This having AMP 3 just feels like a oh shit moment to a degree. So yeah, I'm very interested. And it's the next time you deal arcane, so it just deals that much +1. And happens before prevention. So AB1 doesn't handle it. Yeah, I'm very interested. Let's put it that way. The other card that we have is the Earth Wizard action. That is the Verdant specialization, aka Shiana specialization. This is again a blue that blocks 3, called Heartbeat of Candlehold. It is gain 1 health, gain 1 health, gain 1 health, go again. Now, that's fascinating because, and yeah, the artist Sophie, but is the Earth Wizard going to be the life gain wizard?
Could be.
Like a rejuvenating wizard? Do we get an alt
so
win?
So I have been thinking about a number of different ways that you could take this. It could be a life gaining wizard. It could be something where like maybe it's like Florian, where like you have to turn it on, but then once it's on, it could have text where it's like if you would gain life, gain 1 more instead, and then this would turn into gain 6. It could be something where it's like if you would gain life, also deal that much arcane damage.
Right. That's kind of what I was thinking. It's more that.
Yeah, the only reason that I think it might not be that is because I feel like if you can be that defensive and that offensive, like you would have to have some sort of offsetting thing. And if all the heroes are going to be 20 health,
yeah,
you know what I mean?
Well, we don't know if the wizards are.
Yeah, I mean that's just it. We don't know, but I would just like to think there's a lot of like weird things that we don't know, but can also infer. But all like I would like to point out, you mentioned we've only seen the marvels of the wizards, right? But
The Marvel
they did show
sides,
yeah, the Marvel side. But we did get the Marvel sides of the Rune Blades too. And one of the things that I also thought was interesting is that the Aurora Marvel is different from the art on her card.
Correct. It is different.
Also, that art is fantastic, by the way.
Oh yeah.
They also dropped a few other art pieces that I thought were interesting because one of them I suspect will be, if I'm being honest, I think it might be the Fabled Gem. Just straight up, if you go to the Rosetta article and you scroll down, there's just like the green looking gem thing that's like glowing. Like I'd be shocked if that doesn't end up being a Fabled Gem. But then you turn around and then the like box promo art, it has like the gem on the tree thing too.
Well, did you see what the art piece you're talking about is called?
It's just Life, right?
It's just called Life.
Yeah.
So that's interesting also.
Yeah, the other thing I thought of, because again, if the box promo, which looks like a gem in front of a tree thing, like that could be the Fable. And then there is a part of me that wonders if Life is actually going to be a token.
That's kind of what I was thinking.
Almost like imagine a rune chant where instead of dealing damage, you gain life.
Mm-hmm. And then,
I mean, who knows, right? But
yeah, it could be anything. It could be a boat.
It could be a boat.
And then the one that we know, the one that we have the least inference is a period about, is Ocilio, the elemental lightning wizard. The only note I have is construct additional pylons because it looks like a Protoss.
Yeah, or it kind of also could be like a lightning golem or something.
Sure.
I don't know.
Like it just, I saw it and I'm like, oh, it's a Protoss zealot. That's good. Construct additional pylons. Sounds great.
You thought it was a zealot? I thought it was an Archon.
No, an Archon would be another good one. Yeah. I mean, it just looks Protoss. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
And for those who are unfamiliar, that's StarCraft reference, but also just awesome looking, like pure and simple, sick looking. I am.
I was just gonna say we can't keep letting them get away with it, but the art continues to just be outstanding.
Next level every time.
Set after set after set.
Yep. And I am like, they are so good about just pushing the button on the hype machine all the time. And then telling us, yeah, we gave you the text for those two. If you want the text for the other two, you got to turn into the Amsterdam broadcast or Amsterdam keynote. It's like,
yep.
And they did it. They're going to do it again. They're just going to, they've turned up the hype machine. People are going to be talking about this like we are for X amount of weeks or days. And then it's going to kind of bubble down a little bit as people are getting ready for Pro Tour or this, that, and the other thing. And then Pro Tour comes around and just fire the hype machine right back up. And then from there we get to, okay, maybe it starts to dwindle a little bit. And then here comes Gen Con, and here come the first strike decks. And then the hype machine just goes right back into overdrive. And then we go from that straight into the spoiler season for the next set or for Rosetta. And then the hype machine kicks back up again. It's like, it is so well marketed. And just kudos to that team. Like, damn, that's impressive. And it's not like it doesn't feel forced. Like, it doesn't feel like we're having stuff shoved down our throat.
No.
They just make sure that we stay wanting.
Yeah, it's because it's drip marketing for like a thing instead of it being blast marketing for all the things.
Right.
And I think that's the big difference and why I appreciate it that much more.
Yeah. This is your weekly reminder, by the way, that there is a Realm 5K Brawl in Princeton, New Jersey on Saturday, July 20th. It's classic constructed, $70 entry. Qualifies for the $50,000 cash tournament at the end of the year. With first place getting a transferable VIP invite. You should go to this event. Derek will be there casting. I don't know if I'll be there yet. If I will, I'll let you know, I guess. But it's also Realm Fest. So there will be Lorcana and Star Wars events as well. That's so if you're interested in those, if you don't do great in the 5K Brawl for Flesh and Blood, but you are a player of either of the other games, there's still stuff. So I would very much so encourage you to show up. It should be an awesome event run by fantastic people. Never have I gone to a Realm event and not had an awesome time. So, and you can at least say hi to one of us at a minimum.
Maybe.
Allegedly.
I say that because like I will be there, but I might be busy. So
yeah.
If I am there and I ignore you, I promise it's not on purpose. It's probably because I'm like rushing to the bathroom while I'm on break for the broadcast or something.
Or it's on purpose.
And if Logan doesn't interact with you, it's not because he didn't show up. It's because he hates you on a personal level, and you should take offense to it.
I should?
No, the listeners should.
Oh. No, okay. What about listener questions? Should we do those?
Should do those. Yeah.
We should. We don't have a ton of them, which is probably for the better, honestly, for this week.
Yeah, but we got some high quality ones, in my opinion.
We do have some high quality ones. Yeah, let's do that. The first one is going to be from Vintox, so Trevor. What did you think of the newest James White interview on Living Legends podcast? Shout out to our friends at Living Legends, Az and Kellen, and Bill. Specifically, James giving them a congrats on reaching 100 weekly episodes with only missing a couple weeks. Okay. Listen. we're not well people. And we aren't doing ourselves any favors by this streak being what it is. I applaud the Living Legends crew for taking the much needed time to focus on things that are potentially more or healthier ways to go about creating content, and knowing when you kind of need to step away from a minute and not really force yourself to not really, force yourself to be in that creator role every week for 133 straight weeks. I applaud them for their restraint. That's literally the only time I'm ever going to applaud Az on his restraint of anything, though. Jesus Christ. There is a follow-up question. When is James White coming on to Flesh and Pod? Okay. The last listener question is probably the reason that he never will, but because we are who we are and the question showed up, it's gonna get asked. I would obviously there are a grip of people that have an open invite at all times onto the show. Of them, the ones that probably the ones that haven't taken advantage of that at all, and maybe because they don't know, I mean, or because they don't want to, either is fine. But I would say that Brian Gottlieb is an open invite. Brian can come on anytime he wants to. James White is obviously an open invite. He can come on anytime he wants to. Like, just feel free. You let us know and that you want to come on, and open arms every single time. We would love to have you. We would be over the moon to have you. And I think I've also reached out, and back before even Cedric was working with LSS, I had said, you have an open invite anytime you want to come on, feel free. Like, would love. And obviously there are other people that have open invite privileges that have been on a number. There have been on at least once. Alex Norville, Josh Scott, Josh. Josh I'd have on every week if I could.
Yeah, the only reason that I don't pester him more frequently to show up, if I'm being honest, is because I don't want him to stop his posting to Twitter.
We can't interfere with that.
Because his Twitter is my absolute favorite on my timeline.
It is a joy every 3 days or whatever. So yeah, I would love. Do I think that James will come on this show? No, probably not. It's, a couple of things. We are not the most marketable podcast. It's going to go ahead and throw that out there. And our style of doing things, truth be told, Az is also not the most marketable of people at times. I love him. He's a great friend. But man, that dude says fuck as much as I do. And I don't think that we are in the same regard as some other shows that James has been on, as far as the type of content and what LSS likes to see. So I'm just happy that we get what we do get, if I'm being completely honest. But again, I would be extraordinarily happy to have James on the show. I think that would be an absolute blast. If you've ever seen him on Twitter, dropping gems, he definitely has the type of temperament for the show.
Yeah. So let me jump in. I want to be, I guess, also kind of clear. I don't think that we are disliked. I don't think James has any sort of like animosity to myself, you, anything like that.
Absolutely not.
I think what people sometimes forget, because James is so approachable, because James is one of the gang, if you will, right? Like when you see him speak freely and whatever, you can tell he's just a card game player like all of us. He just loves the game like all of us, and that makes him feel very approachable. But he is also like myself. So like my day job, I am a completely different person in many respects, right? Like you have to put on a different hat for different things. And so my day job is not it's not to the level of a James White, but I work for government in a relatively high up position. Like I have a team and whatever, and so like there are certain protocols and things that you have to follow. And I think it's just easy for us as a community sometimes, because James is such a cool dude, to forget that he is also the CEO and founder of a multi-million-dollar company. And so it's not like, if I'm being entirely honest, as much as I would love to have him on, because I think James is great, it's not in his best interest to do our show because of a couple of things. All right. One, we don't shy away from stuff. And so like if we say, hey, James is going to be on the show, send us your questions, and somebody asks some dumb question, we're probably not going to filter it, because it's just not what we want for this show. So I had a few people ask about our show over this past weekend actually, and I was always explaining it as our show is designed right, like this is a purposeful thought that we have had. It's a conversation Logan and I have had. I know Logan had it with Jordan and Abby long before me as well. The idea is that there are a lot of great content creators in Flesh and Blood, and there's a lot of people that do very good educational content. There is a lot of people that do great interview shows. There are other good informational podcasts. This show is meant to be, for lack of a better way to phrase it, like, drinking with the gang, drinking with your buddies, talking about some game that you love. I said several times this weekend that the closest like parallel that I can think of is that we're almost like the sports talk radio of Flesh and Blood, where it's not like the official analysis you're getting with like, former NFL Hall of Famers or whatever on a halftime show. This is your, better than Jim Rome show. But the idea is the same, right? Like we are, we're sports talk radio in many ways, just full of opinions, but also riffing and having fun. And so when you have that environment, and you also have us trying to be true to the spirit of the show and not shy away from things, for James to come on, I think James would come on and would actually have a very good time. But I think that he is also an incredibly smart man and knows that him coming on as James White is fine. Him coming on as CEO and founder of multi-million-dollar multinational business is probably not fine, because there's no way that lends itself well. Like when he does an interview show, because while we have guests on and we quote unquote interview them, our show has never been an interview show.
No, we don't.
Hanging with the gang show. So if somebody comes on,
fucking interview people,
an interview show, they can ask, or be asked pointed questions and give thoughtful answers and do things that then later on for marketability or engagement, whatever, they can share with confidence, or they can point to, or even if they're not the ones doing it, even if LSS doesn't like retweet after James White has been on a podcast or something, other people can share it and James can feel good about it. And I'm not saying you wouldn't feel good about our show. I'm just saying that when you, again, are somebody of that status, and, I don't know what's going on behind the scenes. I don't know if he's got, investors, or what kind of partnerships he has, even if it's not true investment, but, partnerships with like Dragon Shield for the sleeves and all of this and that. The last thing you want is your CEO to show up on this show. So I fully get it. I would love to have him on. Like I said, I think that he is definitely somebody who would fit in well. His temperament, I think that if we ever got him in person, like for what I would describe as an in-person After Dark-esque type thing, it would be an absolute riot.
Oh my God.
I do fully understand why he he has not taken us up, and I'll be honest, I would be shocked if he ever did do it, because like I said, the reality is it's only to his detriment, and I'm fully aware of that. My day job is analysis, and though I'm very funny here when I'm on a broadcast desk, I try to be far more professional, and I do pride myself in being able to provide good analysis. And so the analyst side of me says it is a complete net negative for James White to make an appearance.
Okay, I wouldn't call it a net. I wouldn't call it a complete net negative.
Okay, it's a net negative for him.
There we go. Also, I forgot to mention Joe Sapp. I know, Joe, you listen on occasion. You also have an open invite to come on here whenever you want to. But
Iswardi.
Oh, Iswardi's, yeah, but Iswardi's been on.
Yeah,
but yes, he has the open invite.
Always has an open invite.
Always has one.
I love you, Iswardi.
He's the fucking best. But yeah, I think that the purpose for James to come on this show would just be as a celebrational type of mechanism to say, almost as like just a thank you, if anything else. Even if it was like, hey, I want you, if you could, I want you to send me questions ahead of time, I'd be like, sure. And if he said, I don't like this one, or I can't answer this one, I'd be like, okay. Now, the other side of that is there is a non-zero chance I'd probably ask it anyway. But I've also told like LSS people have come on here, Alex and Josh, and even Iswardi, honestly, if you say something and you're like, oops, yes, I will give you the privilege of editing that out and taking care, timestamping and taking care of it. I wouldn't do that for Jordan or Elaine or Mara or any of those. No. You are now on wax and it stays. But there are other people, like there are some, I understand when there are sensitivities involved with what somebody might say, that being able to manage that is important to them. And because it's important to them, it has to be important to us. That doesn't mean we aren't going to say out of pocket shit still. We still will, because it's what we do. But it's also something that was very important to us to respect anybody's wishes that comes on this show that is giving us their time. It is incumbent upon us to make sure that we respect their wishes and what they need to protect and things like that. So, yeah, I while Charmer has made it quite clear that he thinks that the risk is far too great to be on a show with us, and I would fucking I would have so much fun on an After Dark with James. Holy shit. But what I don't think that that's necessarily true, just because, and you're doing a little bit of a bit, but
no,
I don't think
commit to the bit.
Well,
there's no little bit.
You have to commit, but
I am telling you that his lawyer is advising him, don't do it.
Oh, sure.
Hell, our lawyer,
our
Jordan,
lawyer would advise us
if we
not
ever
to
were
do it.
like, I was gonna say, if we were ever like, hey, James is actually going to be on the show, Jordan would find a way to text James and be like, dude, don't do
this. Please don't do this. For my guys, don't do this. Yeah, moving on. Next question is from Justin S. Since Scrimshish, you tried. Both teams played hard.
That is the skirmish version of Shrimpsies.
That's what I'm thinking too. It's the skirmish version of Shrimpsies. Season has been announced being LL or Blitz. Which format do you want to see, and which format do you expect to see the most? This is a pretty easy one. I expect to see Blitz the most, and I want Blitz to be. I'd rather play Blitz. Like,
here locally, I honestly expect it to be kind of split. There are a fair number of people, at least here locally, that were somewhat excited when Living Legend was first announced. We also have a couple of stores that they don't do their announcements early. They wait for the other stores to do their thing,
Mm-hmm.
and then they try to like purposely pick the opposite. So I expect locally it to be a bit of a split. If there was any sort of like estimated guess, I expect it to be like 60-40, maybe 70-30 Blitz LL.
Yeah,
But I'm personally excited for both. Like I would play in both, assuming my schedule allows. I am more excited for Blitz for a couple of reasons. I think Blitz is a better format than people give it credit for, and I've said that
absolutely.
several times on this show. But also, as I said earlier in this show, Arachne Solitary Confinement got a bunch of cool new tools, and that's the only format I can play them in, other than like UPF or whatever. So, like, turn me loose. You
Yeah,
know,
let's go, baby.
let Arachne out of that cell.
And I only get like probably one more week of playing Briar and Blitz, so let me get an early one. Yeah, I expect to see, especially locally here. I expect to see. I don't even know if we'll do an LL one here. We just don't have our player base has rotated a lot, so we have a lot of people that kind of came in after the super pushed Heroes of Aria and stuff like that. So yeah, I mean, I would just play Chain probably, to be honest. But I think that Blitz is probably just a safer pick for most stores and most places. So I think it'll be probably nationwide, probably, or worldwide, probably be like 80-20, 85-15 Blitz. Is my guess. Moving on, Mr. Chips, our new our new member of the Discord, asks, do you guys think that LSS will continue the keyword creeping we've seen with recent sets, aka each new set gets new keywords and new abilities bolted on? Or do you think they'll eventually flesh, in air quotes, thanks, I hate it, out each class and area, and then they will stick to those keys for the most part, i.e. introduce new ones on occasion? So I'll give my quick answer on this one first. The quick answer is I think that what they will do, this game is still very young, and you do see repeat keywords alongside added keywords. In most cases, AMP is a good example. That we're getting that it's a repeat keyword, and we're getting it in Rosetta. But eventually, you'll hit a point in that game that is as new as this, where you kind of just go revisit, and you don't really add a key, you just bring back old keywords or whatever. But the game is young enough that we're not at that spot yet. There's still ample design space. No pun intended with having just referred to AMP. I see you leaning into your microphone like that. It's not so dark that I can't see you with your fucking Smucker's face. So get that shit off of there, you son of a bitch.
I'm so proud of you.
Motherfucker. So yeah, I feel as though that we're still in a spot where introducing new keywords is probably the correct thing to be doing with different sets. Maybe kind of like slowing down a little bit here and there. Obviously with heavy hitters, you didn't see much in the way of new keywords at all. You had wager. And was there anything outside of wager that was new? I don't remember, but
Not at that point. There was stuff that was still pretty fresh. Like we'd only
yeah,
very recently gotten like agility and might tokens or whatever. There was
and
like a set or two
overpower.
before.
Yeah, overpower isn't super old or anything, but yeah, so it was like one. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if decompose was the only new keyword in this set.
I think we'll get two. I think we'll get decompose and something new for.
Right. Yeah.
I'm being honest. It's either new for lightning or it might be new for the wizards, because
right.
Embodiments of earth and embodiments of lightning both already exist, but obviously
Essence already exists. Yeah.
The embodiment of lightning is only going to be relevant to the rune blades in all likelihood, unless the wizards are also
attack action wizards,
or at least designed to like run generics, right? Like maybe we're getting Wounded Bull Icelander builds or something,
but with lightning surge instead, so as go again if you play it from Arsenal.
Yeah.
Or Entwined Lightning, so if you fuse it, it has go again, and then you play the lightning card that you just fused it with behind it.
Yeah,
Um,
there's a lot of room.
mhm.
I am personally of the opinion that it will be a bit of both for at least 3 more years.
Yeah, 2 to 3 was my thought process.
Um,
I think as you get closer to that 10-year mark, you're incentivized to kind of make what is old new again to a degree. If that makes
there is
sense.
that. It's a good time to also have that like nostalgia
Hmm.
revisit stuff. But the other reason that I am basing it on this is that Flesh and Blood is also still world building.
Yeah.
And one of the ways that you make things feel like both new and unique is with like new keywords that do something a bit different. And we still have plenty of places in the world that have been outlined that we haven't been to, right? We haven't uh visited the seas. We talked a lot
Hmm.
about how much we
Pirates.
wanted
Yeah.
to see
We
pirate
spent
stuff this
we
weekend.
spent hours talking about pirates this
Like
weekend because we're
we
hanging out
were
with Steven.
yeah, we were hanging out with Steven, so we basically designed an entire expansion around pirates and
Pirates.
seas and all sorts of stuff. But also, Savage Lands, I know a lot of people are really excited to hit at some point, and
Go back to
um,
Solana, I think, is the first set of next year.
yeah, and that's going back to that. That's not even a new spot. I'm just saying
It's the
that
end of
there
the
are,
trilogy, but yeah.
yeah, there are a lot of places that we have yet to kind of venture to, and so when that happens, I do expect uh when that happens, like Savage Lands, for example, I expect there to be something similar to Heavy Hitters, where you get something new and you also recycle some old, right? Like you get a little bit of Intimidate, you get a little bit of, oh, you know what? We did get something else. We got Beat Chest in
Oh
Heavy
yeah,
Hitters.
beaten chests.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we were beating chests and cracking skulls, but
that's right.
yeah,
Yeah, well, I think that, and also I feel like uh, the LSS sort of schedule thought process is going to be have one set a year that is sort of a stripped down back to basics type of set. Like Heavy Hitters was that. Um, it was attack and block and not much else. Um, and then 2 sets of what we're seeing with Mist right now, and then also what it looks like we'll be seeing with Rosetta, where it is not as new player friendly, but it's really there to make the game deeper. And so you'll kind of have these sets that are onboarding sets, and then sets that are there to grow the game as it exists.
they're
So
also highly thematic. So it's not just that they're
yes,
deeper mechanically, but while Heavy Hitters still very thematic, right? Very easy to grasp conceptually if you're a new player. Like, okay, it's people fighting in an arena, right?
right. And Savage Lands
Whereas,
will be people fighting in a jungle.
yeah. But you've got part the Mistveil with a bit more lore impact. Rosetta obviously going back, but even thinking about previous sets, right? Like, there's a big difference between like Outsiders, even though I love that set, versus like a Monarch, which lore wise was a bit more complex, and the heroes are a bit more complex. There's uh Bright Lights, again, very like down the rabbit hole in terms of like narrowness, as well, but also on the lore front as well. So yeah.
Yeah. Last question is from, and I want to make sure that we give proper attribution of the question. It's not us asking this. It is Bryn of the Banished Zone podcast, as well as Crankshaft on YouTube, as well as a level 1 judge for Flesh and Blood. Very important member of the community. And her question, not ours, her question is James White a freak? No, Bryn.
Yeah, might be a hot take. I don't think so.
No.
I think he's just too wholesome.
Yeah.
He definitely still has that, nerdy gamer, one of the gang like vibe to him, but he also just really has like wholesome dad vibes to me.
Yeah, he strikes me as a pub dude.
Yeah.
You know? I like a pub dude. Love a pub dude. I also aspire to always be a pub dude because it's a great spot. But to answer your question, Bryn, not our question, your question, Bryn.
Yeah.
No, I don't think so.
Of the Banished Zone, and also you said
Crankshaft, yep.
Not to be confused with Drive Shaft, which was the fake band in the TV show Lost. That
yes.
sang the song "You All Everybody."
That's
a deep cut. I know.
Cut. Yeah, we're cutting.
I
deep
miss
on
that
this
show
one.
sometimes.
I miss season 1.
You know, I actually liked I think all the way up through about season 3. I mean, really, when you think about it, they did a lot of innovative things for TV shows that are mimicked by a lot of modern shows. I like to say that they were to TV shows what Matrix was to action films, where like you had the Matrix and then everything did slow-mo and like spinning around camera angles and whatever for like every year forever after. And the like start telling a story and then do flashbacks to explain why in an episode was kind of like, it's not that it had never been done before, but it was like really popularized by Lost.
Okay, the season 1 show is Heroes. We can all agree on that though, right? Like Hero season 1 is quite good, and then just stop.
Yeah.
Okay,
I would also, talking about deep cuts, I would also say the same thing about Dark Angel. Season 1 was way better than season 2.
Season 1's quite good. But let's thank some patrons and then get the hell out of here. So our associate producers are Andy, Cindra, Jacob, Kenny, Larry, and the Salty Sea Cat. Our executive producers on up are Alex Belaystorm, value member of the Patreon, Dom Lance, good thrust, Matt Two Tokes, Poxonus, Trevor, Papa Mike, Philip, Rich, and Sunny. If you would like to become a member of the Patreon, you can go to patreon.com/fleshandpod. Link is in the show notes. There are 6 tiers. Pick one. Any paid tier gets you in a FAP After Dark, which I believe we'll be doing here. I want to do it after Origins. So I'm going to try to get that organized for not this week, but next. We'll see if we can get that to work. If you need to contact the show, you can always find us on Twitter at FleshPod. You can send us an email at fleshandpod@gmail.com. You can also just join the Discord. Links in the show notes. Free to join, come hang out. Join the conversation, as it were. There are many options of conversation to enjoy. And then, absolutely free. Don't need to be a member of the Patreon or anything else. Just come on in. Water's fine. Derek, where can they find you?
In the Discord.
Best place.
Also, Sailing the High Seas with Mr. Armada in the new set that we designed in my sea monster themed pirate.
Okay. We're not getting into your tentacles.
Charm 3R in a bunch of places if you want to find me. If you want to hear me talk about other card games, Ice Cave Radio is a thing for Star Wars. Or you can just catch me in person and I'll tell you about every dead card game I've ever covered until you want to gouge your eyes out. Yeah. You can catch me casting Alpha Clash alongside none other than the Logan Peterson at Origins this upcoming weekend.
Yes. There you go. Please. And then if you're going to be at Origins, please do swing by the Alpha Clash booth. I will be there most of the time, except for Saturday and Sunday when we're casting. But if you are there, just make sure to swing by, say hello. Would love to see you. If you need to get a hold of me, I have a personal Twitter. It's at Logan Peterson, but I also do all the social media and such for the show. So if you tweet at Flesh and Pod, you're getting me. If you leave a comment on YouTube, and also please like and subscribe on YouTube. I'm bad at marketing myself, so this is about the only place I do it. But I really am trying to market Derek more than me. He's more marketable. But please just like and subscribe, and if you enjoy the show, and if you don't, well, okay, I appreciate you trying. But the YouTube comments is mostly me replying, although Derek also just replies from his own account all the time too. Yeah, I think that's all I got for this week. I guess we'll be back next week for 134, and maybe Derek will find the light of day. You never know.
Maybe.
Maybe. All right.
I
Well,
hope not.
we'll talk to you all again next week. Thanks for listening. Bye.